We've got some Chicago Bears running back rumors I want to dive into here on a Friday. My name is Harrison Graham. This is Bears Now by Chat Sports. I have been told by a source that Chicago has interest in two free agent running backs. And what could that mean for DeAndre Swift? We will dive into it all here on today's show. But guys, I appreciate all of you that have followed me on TikTok already. I'm looking to continue to grow over there. I'm publishing daily content, short form Bears videos, some other NFL and college football coverage sprinkled in as well. We just crossed 4,000 followers on The Talk. Would love to get to 5,000 before the start of free agency. So if you want to support, go follow me. It's at HGramNFL over on TikTok. All right, the Bears are interested in two free agent running backs, according to a source. And the first one is Breece Hall, which is obviously very interesting because he's one of, if not maybe even the best free agent to be running back available this year. Him, Kenneth Walker, then I'd say Travis Etienne, a relative distant third of the top three free agent running backs to be. Kenneth Walker, I'm not sure he actually becomes available. I think he could get franchise tagged. But I do think Hall hits the open market. And look, he would be an upgrade over DeAndre Swift, in my opinion. He's still a few years younger. He's got a decent amount of tread still on those tires because his rookie year he wasn't utilized too much. And he's been able to stay healthy the last 3 years. And he's been productive for a team that's had no resemblance of a passing attack or really any idea of how they want to play offensive football. I thought they did a decent job running the football this year, but he's been productive despite all of that. He's also a good pass catcher, had 76 catches his second NFL season, and even this year, for a putrid passing attack, still had 36 grabs. So he is a full three-down capable running back, and I would say somewhere inside the top 10 of NFL running backs in the league right now. Probably closer to 10 than 5. I'd say anywhere between 6, 7, and memes, I'm going to get going on that one, and 12 or so. I would say he's in that range, but on any given Sunday, he can be one of the best running backs in the league. And again, he's proven that with a shitty organization in the New York Jets. And, you know, the question becomes for me, if you're going to talk about, okay, let's try to upgrade from DeAndre Swift with a guy like Breece Hall, what's it going to cost? What is the price tag? Well, Pro Football Focus projects a 3-year, $37 million contract with 25 guaranteed. So 12 and change, 12.3 million per year, basically a 2+1 structure there. So you'd basically fully guarantee the first 2 years, and then you could get out of it in year 3, similar to Swift's contract when he signed here, but more money, right? Swift signed for about $8.5 million per year. Breece Hall would be just over $12 million, but cap's gone up and he's a better player, so it's not like it's an egregious contract. And when you look at the highest paid guys in the NFL, I think that kind of checks out. Now, I don't think he's better than a guy like James Cook, but he's younger, has more tread on the tires, and the cap's going up, right? So that's kind of the cost of doing business. Like if he hit free agency last year, he probably would have been in more of that $10, $11 million range. I think anywhere from $10 million per year to $13 million per year is probably where he's going to fall on a 2 to a 4-year contract. I think he'll get multiple years. 3 feels like the sweet spot there, a 2+1. I think it's a fair projection from Pro Football Focus of just over $12 million per year, 3 for 37 with 25 guaranteed. So let's talk about the Swift angle of this. So if they were going to go with Breece Hall, clearly they'd be pivoting off Swift. They'd try to cut or to trade him. You'd save $7.5 million if you did cut DeAndre Swift. And look, I've said it, I'm comfortable with keeping Swift for another year. $8.8 million cap hit. I think that's a reasonable number for what he provided last year. He's not a perfect player, but he played well a year in this past season, knows the offense. I think his production met that contract. That being said, I do think Breece Hall would be an upgrade. He's just better than Swift at everything. He's better out of the backfield. He's a little more explosive. He is a bigger body. He's a little bit more physical. You know, some of those runs from Swift, you know, those ankle tackles, you're like, golly, if you could just get out of that one, you could be off to the races. I think Hall breaks more of those type of plays open than DeAndre Swift does. He's just another caliber level of back in terms of if you're tearing out backs in the NFL. And Breece Hall has been pretty vocal about wanting to play football games that matter because he's not played in many games that matter at all in the NFL. He tweeted this on Super Bowl Sunday. He said, "I hope I get to experience football on this stage, everything on the line. I'll get there one day. I know it." Well, that sounds like, to me, a guy who wants to leave New York. So I do not expect him back with the Jets. And listen, you might be out there saying, "Oh, Harrison, we don't need a running back." I agree. The Bears don't need Breece Hall. They could simply run it back with DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monungai and be perfectly fine. And I'd be cool with that. Run this duo back this year, and you can look to upgrade over Swift the following year because you probably wouldn't bring him back after 2026. But who's the head coach of this football team? That is Ben Johnson, and he values running backs in the running back position, and I don't think this offseason is only going to be just defense. I think that'll be the priority, but if they can upgrade at a spot like running back and add even more juice and explosiveness to this offense, they're going to look to do it. Do you know how long the longest run of the year was for DeAndre Swift? Take a guess. I'll give you 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1, 36 yards. So DeAndre Swift had he averaged almost 5 yards per carry. There were certainly plenty of 10-plus yard runs, but there weren't any of those just monster home runs. He actually hit a couple more last year than he did this year, even though he was a much better player in 2025 than he was in 2024. I would guess if I watched every one of Swift's carries this past year, I could probably find a handful of I think Hall breaks that one, right? Like, again, those shoestring tackles, I think Hall just gives you a little bit more of that dynamic ability with his bigger stature than DeAndre Swift. So, again, I'm not dropping everything to chase Breece Hall, but I'll give an example. The Packers a couple of off seasons ago had Aaron Jones under contract, good player, getting a little bit older, but still a good player. I think they were comfortable with him. But they were able to sign Josh Jacobs on day one of free agency or come to terms on an agreement. And when they did that, they then cut Aaron Jones. So the Bears could take a similar approach. Enter free agency, you've got Swift under contract, but if you get Breece Hall, or I'll just throw Kenneth Walker in there verbally. I don't think he hits free agency, but if you got a deal for one of those guys that you thought was reasonable, you then could cut Swift, right? So you protect yourself initially, but if a contract comes together for a player you like, you could then afterward cut the player that you currently have. So we'll see what happens. I have some interest as long as the money is reasonable. I'll ask you guys, how interested are you in Breece Hall? 1 being not at all, 10 being very. Probably like a 7. He would absolutely upgrade this offense and give you an even more dynamic running game, which we know is a big part of what Ben Johnson wants to do offensively, is run the football. So, yeah, I mean, if you could get it financially in a way that makes sense. I mean, you cut Swift for 7.5. Maybe Hall's cap hit in year one's only like $10 million. You lose $2.5 million to upgrade at running back. That might be worth it for a guy in Breece Hall who could take off in a much better situation. Okay, we'll talk about another running back I've heard the Bears are interested in here on the other side of our sponsor read, but we got to talk about our awesome sponsor first. That, of course, is PrizePicks. Shoot your shot with PrizePicks and get $50 instantly in lineups when you play your first $5. That's right, PrizePicks is now giving you $50 in lineups when you sign up and play your first $5. PrizePicks makes every dunk, every dime, and every board that much more exciting, so don't miss the chance to get started on America's #1 app for sports picks. Football might be over, but I'm just getting started with PrizePicks as the hoops action is heating up. Just pick more or less on stat projections on 2 to 6 player lineups, regardless of sport, and you are good to go. How about QB1? He's going to be in the little celebrity contest tonight. Give me the more on 8.5 made threes. I know he said he's not a hooper, but 8.5 points, I should say, in the contest. I think he'll get there. Drewski, 0.5 point. Come on, Drewski. Not throw one in there for me. Jared McCain, if he goes less, he should retire from playing the sport, considering he's in the league. And then Richard Jefferson, longtime hooper as well. Give me the more on that. $10 to win 100 on this 4-player lineup. Check out PrizePicks. Download the app today. Use our code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That is code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. Okay, the second running back I've been told that the Bears are interested in is Tyler Allgeier, the running back with the Falcons. A player I've actually liked for a while. He had a 1,000-yard season his rookie year. Then they drafted Bijan Robinson, who's obviously a much better player, one of the best, if not the best, running backs in the league. So he's kind of been stuck as the RB2 in Atlanta the past few years. Now they've still used him and he's still been productive. I do think he could be an RB1 for a team. All of that being said, though, just because I like him doesn't mean I love him for the Bears. Why is that? There's not a lot of differences in he and Kyle Monangai in terms of their games. They're not the most explosive backs. They're not the twitchiest backs. They're both in between the tackles runners for the most part. Like Allgeier is kind of tight in the hips, stiff. He's not going to make a lot of people miss in space. He's a physical downhill runner. Well, that's kind of what Kyle Monangai is. If I'm going to run a 1-2 punch, I want guys who can do different things. Now, Hall can do a little bit of everything, so the number 2 can really be any style you want. But the reason Swift and Monangai I think is effective is because Swift has a little bit more of that make-you-miss ability. He can hit some home runs, even though this year he didn't really actually do a ton of that. But he was just solid overall, good pass catcher. Allgeier's not really that. Like you look at his career as a runner. This year the efficiency was a little down, but they used him a lot in short yardage. You saw what he could do as a rookie, which was really impressive. 2024, he had an efficient season as well. But in 4 seasons, he's got just over 500 receiving yards. Like, he's not going to give you much of that. And whereas Monangai, I think throughout the course of his rookie season, improved as a pass catcher and I think can continue to get better, I don't think he's ever some dynamic pass catcher. So if you were to go with the Tyler Allgeier, Kyle Monangai pairing, I think you have to add a scat back. And so then you're having to add 2 running backs. You would cut or trade Swift, bring in Allgeier, and then, I don't know, are you drafting a scat back on day 3? Like, that just seems like too much maneuvering, in my opinion, unless the Bears know something I don't. I'm not saying I know more than the Bears, but Monangai and Allgeier, their strengths are never going to be making people miss in space consistently and catching the football. Like, to me, you need a pass-catching running back if you were to go this route. This is also kind of a funky projection from PFF. They project a 2-year, $18 million contract, which is $9 million per year, which is, I think, a clear overpay for Tyler Allgeier, but only $5 million guaranteed. So I don't know if their idea is like incentives built in. So I'm not really sure. Like, why not just have it be like 2 for 12? I think that's more reasonable for Allgeier, like lower end starter money, high end number 2 money. So I think that's kind of what he is as a running back in the NFL. $9 million per year is too much. Now, if it's lower guarantees and the cap hits are lower, I guess it doesn't really matter. You're really just talking about potential cash flow, not cap hits, and that's on the Bears to figure out. That doesn't mess their books up necessarily from a salary cap table standpoint. All that being said, though, I like Allgeier. I think he's a good player. I think he's a better physical runner than Swift. I think Swift's a better overall player. Right? He just had the best year of his career. He had almost 1,400 all-purpose yards. I've said all along, I'm not actively looking to pivot off Swift. Now, I don't think they'd be doing their due diligence if they didn't look into a guy like Breece Hall, if they didn't look into a guy like Kenneth Walker, if he doesn't get franchise tagged by Seattle. But Tyler Allgeier, that doesn't move the needle much for me. I don't think your run game is better if you go from DeAndre Swift to Tyler Allgeier. You might save a few $million on your cap, but like, again, you're not breaking the bank for DeAndre Swift. It's $8.8 million this year. That's a pretty low percentage of your salary cap. So I would not make that move. I'd be open, again, to taking a Packers approach with the Josh Jacobs, Aaron Jones maneuvering. If you could get a Breece Hall or a Kenneth Walker at a price tag you're comfortable with, and then cut Swift after, if you're able to pull that off, great. Otherwise, I'm probably just sticking with what I got, and maybe I explore a player in the draft that I like in the middle or later rounds. So we'll see how it plays out, but the Allgeier outcome is not really one that I'm all that interested in. Okay, pick a contract. So these are the scenarios. Swift, just on his remaining 1-year deal, $8.8 million, if that's what you want to do, type 1. If you want the Breece Hall with his deal with his PFF contract projection, 3 years, $37 million, $25 guaranteed. Type 2, Tyler Allgeier, 2 years, $18 million, but only $5 guaranteed. Type 3, I would do 1 or 2. If you could get Breece Hall at that number or a little less, I would take the swing because I think he could upgrade this offense even more. But again, if the worst case scenario for the Bears is they just run their running back duo back, I think that's still a pretty good outcome. For most of the season, this Bears rushing attack was very good. It started a little slow. Last couple games finished slow, but that middle 13 or 14 games was really, really effective. And I think it can be similar in 2026. Okay, that's going to do it for Chicago Bears now. We'll see what happens on the running back front, as I do think it's a position they're at least going to monitor between now and free agency. Appreciate everybody for tuning in. Hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you guys soon.